comes to the police and says, look, I've been doing this for 3 years, I've had enough, I am ready to shop the gang I'm with because I know I'm going to be dead in 5 years running these drugs, you just say, no thanks, son.
Yeah, you take the information, you put them in some form of witness protection program. You don't give the message that children's lives are already, they view their lives as worthless, and it's just further reinforcing this idea that...
All right. JJ, you had the last word. Thank you. Apologies to many people. Look, we won't let Death Trap motorways go, I promise you. Bob, Terry, Catherine and others, they are not going to go away. Sadly, there's another 300 miles of them on the way. But we will return to that subject. But I'm done for another day. James O'Brien's limbering up the other side of the news here on...
Thank you, Nick. As America continues to develop, we have the warning of our times regarding the danger of staying loyal to a political figure, regardless of how despicable, disgusting and depraved their conduct may be. To Blighty, remember that you can be approved as a government do, you can be warm regarding some policies and rather cold regarding others. So bizarrely, the vaccination program continues to shine on the global stage, but simultaneously the government would rather you hadn't noticed that over the 7-day average we now have the worst death rate in...
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 10 o'clock, Dame Cressida Dick has told LBC she's baffled why frontline officers aren't closer to the front of the queue to receive the COVID vaccine. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner is calling for them to be prioritised in the next cohorts.
There's been a lot of historical debate about...
Dame Cressida says she's been lobbying the government over the issue. She's revealed around 150 of her officers have been coughed or spat at by people claiming to have coronavirus. The Health Secretary has confirmed he is self-isolating after being alerted by the NHS COVID-19 app. Matt Hancock says he won't be leaving the house at all until Sunday. In a video posted on Twitter, he's urged others to do the same if they're told to.
This self-isolation is perhaps the most important part of all the social distancing, because I know from the app that I've been in close contact with somebody who's tested positive, and this is how we break the chains of transmission.
It's estimated that by December, 1 in 8 people in England had had COVID-19 in the past. The Office for National Statistics has released antibody data from its infection survey. The figure is 1 in 10 for Wales, 1 in 11 for Scotland, and in Northern Ireland it's 1 in 13. The Environment Agency is warning of potentially significant flooding across some areas this week with the arrival of Storm Christoph. People in northern, central and eastern areas of England are being urged to look out for flood alerts and warnings over the next few days. Scott Patient is a local councillor in Calderdale in Yorkshire, which was already hit by flooding a year ago.
The amount of water that's projected to come onto us, and we seem to be right in the centre of it. So, yeah, we are concerned, but we're just trying to make sure that we're doing everything possible to make sure that we're as resilient as possible.
Business leaders say the government should announce an extension to the furlough scheme before the budget in March. The CBI Group is also calling for the business rates holiday to continue. It says firms cannot be expected to wait nearly 2 months to know whether the support will carry on. In the city a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was up 14 points at 67.35. The pound buys $1.36 and €1.12. The weather, rain for much of the UK. It'll be heavy and persistent across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England and Wales. Some dry spells in the south and east. A high of 11 degrees. From Global's newsroom, I'm Simon Conway.
Okay, so we all know the rules now. Social distancing. Support bubbles. Wash your hands. Meet up outdoors. We know they're important, so we're not throwing away the rule book. We're just taking it on holiday for less. Virgin Atlantic sail, now on. Flexible booking and COVID-19 insurance included. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with James O'Brien.
Oh, Well, good morning. 3 minutes after 10 is the time, and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I don't do this every day because it would sound a little bit glib and insincere, but thank you. Thank you for choosing to spend at least some of the next 3 hours with me. Not only do I value and enjoy your company every day, but in every meaningful sense of the word, I actually need it. So forgive me for going off on a bit of a burble today. I'm going to sort of start speaking and hope that some threads emerge, some strands emerge that we might be able to knit together, because there's a few things going on. There is the politics, obviously, which is currently, understandably, I think, I don't know that it would necessarily be any different if regardless of who was in power, we are still very encouraged and very optimistic about the United Kingdom's vaccine rollout. There are concerns, which I'll get onto in a moment, because it's a little bit weird for me when I find myself having a thought on the way to work, wondering whether or not it's widespread, and then arriving at work to see that it is the front page story in the former newspaper known as the Daily Telegraph. So I'm building suspense now. I had a little thought on the way into work, wondered whether it was a widespread concern, and boom, there it is on the front of the Telegraph. So we'll get onto that in a moment. And then I find my to Australia, partly because I've been swapping Facebook messages with one of my oldest and dearest friends who's lived there for, how long have I been married? Yeah, the best part of 20 years. And she is in that sort of curiously baffled, perhaps, place, genuinely baffled, like warmly baffled. People that love the United Kingdom, people that love Britain, and live overseas, looking at us, particularly I think from Australia, because the expat community or the immigrant community is so huge and so vocal, and you know, we have that language in common, and so we're all still in touch. And she was just expressing a degree of affectionate incredulity, concerned incredulity, you know, not I've noticed some people with regard to vaccines almost celebrating the fact that it is not going very well, for example, in France. I mean, that's just so ugly. You know, the idea that you can be relieved and pleased that your own scheme is going well, but if you're taking pleasure in other schemes going badly, you've got an almighty problem. So when I say affectionate concern, it means I wish things were going better, but I don't understand why they're going the way that they're going. And this comes on the day that we read Australia's borders are likely to remain closed until next year. Yeah, don't check your watch, it's 2021, next year. Regardless of vaccinations, the Secretary of the Department of Health has essentially said there's still uncertainty about whether vaccinations will stop people catching the coronavirus, and he added, I think that we'll go most of this year with still substantial border restrictions. I tell you what, I mean, they seem to be quiet now, but the people who claimed that our economy would collapse if we couldn't keep the sandwich shops open, I mean, how the hell do they process the fact that Australia will have had its borders closed for the best part of 2 years and will have lived to tell the tale? And by closed, of course, we don't mean locked shut. We mean that they have that 2-week quarantine period for everybody arriving here. Which leads me back to Blighty. And I think it was at 4 o'clock this morning that here became, going ostensibly, what happens when you arrive here? So you have to provide a test if you are flying to the UK. Already we are hearing stories that the type of test you take, or the type of testing certificate you take to the airport, may determine whether you can or cannot fly. Some passengers are now being fined £500 on the spot for failing to produce evidence of a negative test. That's when you arrive at Heathrow. So you see what I mean about having a bit of a burble and trying to knit together. It's all coronavirus related, of course, but there isn't yet a single overarching question that pops out the bottom of my cogitations, and nor did I think there would be, because I want you to join me in having a sort of slightly more natural conversation, perhaps, than the ones we have when I hit you over the head with a question and invite you to ring 0345 6060 973 to answer it. And I hate telling you this, and I don't know how big a deal it is, but it is clearly something that needs to be noted. According to the 7-day average, we currently have the highest death toll in the world. Actually, I'm sorry, that's got to be a big deal, hasn't it? We still have, what have they spent on the test and trace? £23 billion. Dido Harding yesterday, trying to give herself a pat on the back for its success. It emerged that we're still paying about £1 million a day to consultants. 900 consultants on £1,000 a day to run the test and trace system that's already cost us £23 billion, and we currently have the highest 7-day death toll in the world. I mean, don't get me wrong, I cannot